I'm Wolf, and this is Arcanaignition. The moon is a waning crescent, and I'm going to read some tarot. My question this evening is from my friend Fox, and Fox writes, I was stuck. All of my outlets for fun and inspiration ran dry a few years ago. Since then, I've been on a desperate uphill search to try to return or reach an end goal. Recently, I realized that I need to focus more on the journey rather than the arrival. How can I better embody patience and loving transition? I feel a lot of resonance with this sense of searching for a kind of joy that used to exist in myself. And I know that when I do this, sometimes I question whether that joy really existed or if it just exists in my memory. And sometimes this will send me on a spiral of, do I ever change? Is how I am right now just how I've always been and how I always will be? But then I warp my past to imagine that I've made some kind of progress. So that's my own adventure around the desperate search for a return or an end goal. And I'm reading your question right now about how you need to focus more on the journey rather than on the arrival, and you're looking to better embody patience and loving transition. And I'm judging this question positively because I believe that a focus on the journey is going to bring you a greater chance for happiness, because your journey is guaranteed and your arrival is not. So let's see what the Robin Wood Tarot deck has to say about this question. Are you ready, Fox? The first card I'm pulling for you Five of Swords. Five of Swords is conflict that makes you wonder why you even started fighting. Conflict that maybe you win and then question whether it was worth it to win and whether you should have been fighting at all. Five of Swords is a battle that no one wins. Five of Swords is interpersonal struggle that, through a different lens or in a different moment, might be totally unnecessary. The next card I'm pulling for you Eight of Swords. Eight of Swords is the feeling, the sensation, the idea that you can't move or go anywhere. Eight of Swords, sensation of stuckness, may or may not be based in reality. There's a possibility with this card that you're feeling all the ways that stuckness feels and you're not actually stuck. Eight of Swords is stormy skies with a light shining through. There's an aspect of divinity about it. There's something kind of sexy about it. And there's this trapped vibe. Eight of Swords is making me think right now of shibari and BDSM, where we ask to be tied up, and we pretend like we can't move, and we pretend we're at somebody else's mercy. And when we do that, we have a very real reason for doing that. And right now, I'm worried about the ability to distinguish between the reality of the situation in which you are in charge and the created nature of the situation in which you cannot move and you are at somebody else's mercy. And I want to notice that when we mix those up in our heads, that becomes our reality. If you are unable to tell somebody that you want out and they're waiting for you to tell them that you want out, that dramatically lowers your ability to get out. And the last card that I'm pulling for you Four of Swords. Four of Swords is rest. Four of Swords is hanging up those swords. Four of Swords is putting aside your need to do anything and laying back and letting the world take care of itself for a bit. Okay, so we have all swords cards here, and I'm going to read them together and see if we can get some insight into your question about how you can better embody patience and loving transition. And the first thing I've noticed is they are all swords cards. So swords are about the mind, and they are associated with the air element. And swords happen with discernment and decision making and the slicing through of the layers of reality to discern the truth. So there are some places where using the mind can be especially difficult and especially painful. And as the swords in the minor arcana get to higher and higher numbers, they get more painful and uncomfortable. So here we have the Eight of Swords, where she is tied up on a thunderstorm on a beach. Very romantic situation, and also potentially very scary, very dramatic. And then we've got the Five of Swords, and fives in general are about difficulties. And with the Five of Swords, it's using the mind, but in this way that puts it in unpleasant competition against other minds. And then finally we have the Four of Swords, which is about rest, the four being about stability or structure. And when the mind is doing this stability structure thing, it calms down. Deep meditation. So how can you better embody patience and loving transition? Well, your mind is what is leading you on this journey. This question, this search, this ability to be into your journey and release or let go of your destination, that is a problem that has been both created and will be solved by your mind. Sometimes the way to solve a problem is not the way we created it. And the other suits are cups, which are about feelings or emotions, pentacles, which are about material or body, and wands, which are about will and power. And those are not the tools which you are being asked to tap right now. You are being asked to think and discern and decide your way through this. So for this Five of Swords, you get to walk away from battles. You get to see that the fight is not serving you and turn and move on. The Eight of Swords, you can also walk away from. Maybe you're just not having fun anymore. Maybe you thought you wanted to be tied up. Maybe you did want to be tied up. And now you don't want to be tied up anymore. You can get out of that. And then the Four of Swords is where you kind of hang your swords in a tree and let them go. So how can you better embody patience and loving transition? You can say no to fighting. In the Tao Te Ching, there's this wonderful line about how there is no greater misfortune than to have an enemy. And I believe that this enemy most likely comes from within yourself, as our most potent and vicious nemesises always do. But having an enemy is a choice, so you can decide not to. You can leave. You can leave the battle. The way for you to embody patience and loving transition is to walk away from battle. Decide to not be tied up and restrained anymore. And to relax. Relax in every way. Relax your mind through meditation. Relax your body through prioritizing sleep. Relax your spirit through letting go of things, of grudges, of objects, maybe even of people that no longer fit into your life. I hope this helps. And if you are watching and you would like me to answer a question of yours, send it to arcanaignition@gmail.com. If you're watching this reading and you're looking at these cards and you have an alternative explanation or suggestion or advice for Fox, feel free to post it in the comments. Have a beautiful evening.